He thought she was
Priceless.
still
See
the
ya!
woman he could humiliate and walk away from.
You
But the
absolute
moment the
jerk!
mud hit her dress,
covered in
he had
mud.
no idea he'd just splashed the Prime Minister's new daughter-in-law. Hi, my beautiful family. Thank you for sticking around with me through our trying times. I really appreciate your love and support. We're finally back again to give you many more beautiful stories. If you're already hooked in for today's story and ready to enjoy it, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from, because tomorrow I will be giving you another story just as interesting as this one, and you don't want to miss it. Now let us begin. Mara didn't look like the woman she used to be. 2 years ago, she was the silent shadow behind a powerful billionaire, her voice buried beneath luxury and loneliness. But now, she stood in the sunlight outside the ministerial residence, the place she'd begun calling home after marrying Daniel Adisa, the Prime Minister's calm, gracious son. She held a small bouquet, coordinating logistics for a charity outreach she'd helped organize. People bustled around her, greeting her warmly, with the respectful tone reserved for political royalty. But inside her, a part of her chest still ached, carrying echoes of nights spent crying quietly so a certain man would never hear. Her new life was beautiful, but healing wasn't a switch. It was a slow unraveling. Daniel approached with his familiar gentle smile. "You're overworking yourself again." "I'm fine," Mara replied, though her fingers tightened on the bouquet. He noticed. He always noticed. "Mara, if something's on your mind, you can tell me." She smiled softly. "I'm just thinking about how far life has taken me." Daniel kissed her forehead, a small gesture, but one that still surprised her. Affection used to feel like a luxury she was never worthy of. Now it felt like air. "Today will be smooth," Daniel assured her. "I've tightened the security routes. Nothing unexpected will come close." Mara nodded, comforted, unaware how wrong that prediction would turn out to be. Across the city, Kian Lawson adjusted his cufflinks in the back of his armored SUV. Billionaire, CEO, feared negotiator, and a man who believed he'd made the right decision divorcing Mara. "She wasn't built for my world," he muttered when his assistant reminded him of the charity event later. "Too soft." But his chest tightened anyway. Not that he'd admit it. He'd convinced himself that his loneliness was a preference, not a consequence. Convinced himself that Mara had moved on insignificantly. Convinced himself that he didn't care. He stared at the city through the tinted window, but saw her face instead. Hurt, quiet, hopeful. He had crushed all three of those things. "Sir, the route ahead goes past the ministerial residence," the driver said. Kian waved dismissively. "Fine, as long as it's fast." He didn't know that fate had just placed him on a collision course with the one woman he'd never truly buried. Back at the charity grounds, Mara's phone buzzed. A security aide said, "Ma'am, a convoy is approaching earlier than expected. Please stay on the pedestrian walkway." "Whose convoy?" she asked. "Unknown yet, but high profile." Mara stepped back politely, her dress brushing the edge of the pavement. She thought nothing of it. But destiny was already threading her story with another's. A heavy engine roared in the distance, and in that moment, Mara's past was speeding straight toward her. The convoy rounded the distant corner faster than expected, tires groaning against the pavement. Mara took a step farther from the road, careful not to disrupt the freshly arranged flower stands. The morning sun was warm, gentle, the kind of light that made everything look harmless. But the moment the first SUV sped closer, something inside her tightened. A memory, a voice, a tone. She shook her head. No, it's just another government escort. The lead vehicle passed smoothly. Then the second SUV accelerated slightly, too close to the curb. "Mara, step back!" one of the security aides called. She moved, but not fast enough. A tidal splash of dirty rainwater burst upward, arching over her like a dark wave. It crashed down her front, soaking her hair, her dress, her arms, her bouquet, swallowing her in cold, gritty shock. Gasps erupted around her. Someone shouted, "Ma'am!" Mara froze. Her breath stuttered. Her fingers went numb. The mud dripping down her face felt too familiar, like the emotional stains she had once lived with every day. But the humiliation wasn't the worst part. It was the voice that followed. "Watch where you're standing next time!" Deep, sharp, commanding. A voice that used to shatter her confidence with just a sentence. Mara's stomach twisted. She turned, slowly, as the tinted window of the SUV slid down. Kian Lawson leaned out, sunglasses low on his nose, irritation carved into his jaw. He looked at her the way a king looks at a peasant in his way. Then the arrogance melted. His mouth parted. His breath caught. "Mara?" he whispered. Her heart dropped. He still had that power, the power she thought she took back. She hated that her knees trembled, hated that the past could still reach into her present. She straightened her spine. Kian blinked. What are you doing here?" Before she could answer, Daniel rushed toward her, followed by security. The moment Kian saw Daniel's arm wrap around Mara's shoulders, his expression twisted. Shock, confusion, and something darker creeping in. Daniel's tone was gentle but firm. "Are you hurt?" "I'm fine," she whispered, though her chest felt like it had shattered into 1,000 trembling pieces. Daniel removed his jacket and draped it over her shoulders. "Let's get you cleaned up." Kian stepped out of the SUV, ignoring his startled staff. "Mara!" His voice was lower now, almost regretful. "I didn't know it was you. I didn't mean—" Daniel turned, eyes cold with authority. "You just drenched my wife." Kian froze. The world seemed to pause. His pupils widened sharply. "Wife?" he repeated, breath unsteady. "Mara, you're married?" Daniel's security shifted forward, a human barrier of political muscle, flashing badges, earpieces, authority. Kian swallowed hard. "To who?" Mara finally spoke, not loudly, not proudly, but with a soft composure she never had in her old life. "To Daniel Edisa, the Prime Minister's son." The silence after her words was so thick it felt like air had weight. Kian's jaw slackened. His chest rose and fell too fast. He looked at her mud-soaked dress, then at Daniel's protective arm, then at her. "Mara," he whispered again, but this time it carried something raw. "You're the Prime Minister's daughter-in-law?" She didn't answer. She didn't need to. Her silence said everything she had never been brave enough to say when she was his wife. He had lost her, and he hadn't even realized the moment he stopped deserving her. But the humiliation wasn't over, not for him. Phones were already out, people already recording, hashtags forming, narratives writing themselves. Mara stepped away from him without a backward glance, and for the first time in his life, Kian Lawson, the man who once made her feel small, felt powerless. The incident spread across the city within hours. By afternoon, headlines blared, "Billionaire splashes mud on Prime Minister's daughter-in-law." Clips of Kian shouting from the SUV circulated online, dissected by millions, slowed down, zoomed in. Commentators debated whether it was intentional. Memes were crafted. Politicians commented. Investors whispered. But Mara did none of that. She spent the rest of the morning quietly assisting volunteers indoors, trying to ignore the cold heaviness still lodged in her chest. Daniel stayed close, protective in a way that made her feel safe and guilty. Guilty that she wasn't fully present. Guilty that a voice from her past could still carve into her present. She wiped mud from the last of the donation boxes when Daniel approached. "People are asking if you want to release a statement," he said gently. "No." Mara shook her head quickly. "If I speak, the story grows legs. I just want this day to end." Daniel studied her. "It's okay to be shaken." She looked away. "I didn't think seeing him would affect me this much." Daniel didn't flinch. He never did with honesty. Healing doesn't erase the past. It just builds a stronger future over it. Her throat tightened. She wasn't sure if she'd ever deserved someone as steady as Daniel. Across town, Kian slammed a newspaper onto his desk. "They're exaggerating," he snapped. His assistant exhaled cautiously. "Sir, the clip was viewed 18 million times in 6 hours." "I said it was an accident!" "Public opinion disagrees," the assistant murmured. Kian paced, rubbing a hand across the back of his neck. Regret gnawed at him, sharp and intrusive. But beneath the regret was something worse, a jealousy so fierce that it made his stomach burn. Mara? Married? Married to the Prime Minister's son? How could she have moved on like that? A knock interrupted his spiraling thoughts. "Mr. Lawson," his assistant said, "there's someone here to see you." But when Kian stepped into the hallway, no one was there. Just a single envelope sitting neatly on the console table. He opened it and froze. It was an official notice, a formal request from the Prime Minister's office asking him to attend a closed-door discussion about the public disrespect incident. His pulse hammered. This wasn't just embarrassment. This was political fire. Mara tried to slip out of the event quietly, but she stopped when she saw him. Kian, leaning against a wall near the exit, waiting. Their eyes locked. Her stomach tightened. She looked away instantly, but he stepped toward her. "Mara, please, can we talk?" Mara's security moved instantly, blocking his path. "Sir, step back." Kian raised his hands, frustrated. "I'm not here to cause trouble." Daniel appeared behind Mara, gaze cold with authority. "Then leave." Kian looked at Mara instead. His voice cracked. She hated that she noticed. "I didn't know it was you. I swear it. I would never—" "You already did," she whispered, surprising even herself with the sharpness in her tone. "Maybe not on purpose today, but too many times when we were married." Kian's face drained of color. Mara swallowed hard. "I don't hate you, Kian. I just don't belong in your world anymore." The sentence hit him harder than the mud had hit her. Daniel gently touched her arm. "Let's go home." She nodded and walked past Kian without a backward glance. But Kian's voice followed her, trembling. "Mara, please, don't walk away again." She paused, only for a heartbeat, then kept walking. For the first time in his life, Kian realized she wasn't the one who had fallen apart. He was. The world didn't slow down for scandals. If anything, it spun faster. Within 48 hours, the Prime Minister's office arranged a formal reconciliation meeting to prevent political misunderstanding and maintain national stability. In other words, the country couldn't afford a public war between the nation's most powerful political family and one of its most powerful business figures. Mara was stunned when Daniel told her. "Kian will be there," he said gently. All she felt was a sinking inside her stomach. "Why do I have to go?" she whispered. "Because you were at the center of it, and because if you're not there, it'll look like we're using power to crush him." Mara exhaled shakily. "I don't want to see him." "I know," Daniel kissed her forehead, "but you won't be alone." The reconciliation meeting took place at a private political estate, away from cameras and crowds. Marble floors shone beneath crystal chandeliers. Security agents lined the halls. The place smelled of polished wood and importance. When Mara walked in with Daniel and the Prime Minister, her palms went cold, her breath uneven. Kian was already there. He stood when they entered. For the first time in years, he looked small, Not physically, but in presence. His usual sharp confidence was wrapped in unease, his eyes flicking to Mara as though seeking something he no longer had permission to reach for. "Mara," he murmured, breath catching. "You look—" He stopped himself, jaw tightening. The Prime Minister cleared his throat. "We'll begin." They sat. A table separated them, but Mara felt every ounce of tension bridging the gap. Kian's lawyers started with damage control. Daniel's advisors countered with political concerns. Voices rose, arguments tangled. But Mara barely heard them. She was too busy trying to breathe while sitting across from the man she once loved blindly. At one point, Kian looked directly at her. Really looked. And she hated that she could still read him. The flicker of regret, the tightening at the corner of his mouth, the tremor beneath the facade. Finally, the Prime Minister said, "We need a public statement. Something neutral, something that de-escalates." Kian exhaled slowly. "Then let me speak to her privately." Daniel stiffened. "Absolutely not." Mara surprised them both. "It's fine," she said quietly. "I can handle it." Daniel's jaw clenched, but he nodded. "If you're sure." She was sure of only one thing. She couldn't keep running from this. They stepped into a side room, just the two of them, for the first time in years. The silence was suffocating. Kian spoke first. "You didn't deserve what happened. Not then, not now." Mara didn't answer. She kept her arms folded, maintaining a distance both physical and emotional. He swallowed hard. "I know an apology won't fix anything, but I need you to know I'm ashamed of everything. The way I treated you, the way I dismissed you." Her chest tightened, anger and sadness colliding. "You didn't just dismiss me, Kian," she replied softly. "You erased me, day by day, word by word." He closed his eyes, as if bracing himself. "I know. And now you're sorry because the world is watching." He flinched. "No, I'm sorry because I lost the one person who truly cared about me, and I didn't realize until it was too late." Mara looked away, her throat thick. "Please don't make this harder." He stepped forward, not close enough to touch her, but close enough that she could feel the weight of the past tightening between them. "You're different now, stronger, brighter, and I'm the one who broke the version of you I was supposed to protect." Her eyes burned, but she didn't let the tears fall. "Kian, I'm not yours to hurt anymore." He nodded slowly, painfully. "I know. That's the worst part." When they walked out of the room, Daniel saw her first. His expression softened the moment he saw her eyes. "You okay?" he asked. Mara nodded, not because she was healed, but because she had finally faced the storm. For the first time, the past felt a little less heavy. But the hardest moment was still ahead. The next morning, the scandal erupted again, but this time in a way no one expected. Mara awoke to the sound of her phone vibrating relentlessly on the nightstand. Daniel reached for it before she could, but her name on the screen made him pause. "It's your mother," he said gently. Mara answered, and the frantic voice on the other end made her stomach drop. "Mara, there's a leak online about your past, about your divorce, about everything." She froze. "What?" she whispered. "They're leaking documents from your old marriage, financial records, personal texts, even photos. They're saying you married Daniel for power, that you were secretly funded by Kian during your relationship. They're tearing you apart, my child." Mara's breath vanished. The room blurred. Daniel immediately sat up, leaning close. "What's wrong?" Her mother continued, voice breaking. They're attacking your character, calling you manipulative, a social climber. It's everywhere. Mara ended the call shakily and handed the phone to Daniel. He scanned the trending feed, his expression darkened fast. Mara, who had access to these? Daniel asked quietly. Only two names came to mind, her and Kian. Her voice trembled. He promised he deleted them when we divorced. Daniel's jaw clenched. He lied. No, she whispered reflexively. He's selfish, but he wouldn't destroy me like this. Not now. But a sliver of doubt slid through her chest like a cold blade. That afternoon, a political advisor stormed into the residence. The Prime Minister wants answers, he said sharply. Why are private documents between you and your ex-husband circulating? Do we have a breach, a threat? Is Kian retaliating? She felt sick. We don't know. We need a public statement within hours. Mara, your reputation and Daniel's are on the line. She swallowed hard. I don't want this to become a war. But it already was.
Meanwhile, across the city, Kian stared at his own phone in horror. He didn't sleep, didn't eat, didn't blink as he scrolled through the leaked files, documents he never intended anyone else to see. His assistant rushed in. Sir, the media thinks these came from your office. They're accusing you of revenge. Kian's stomach dropped. These weren't from me. I kept everything locked. No one else. He froze. There was only one person with access. His former head of security, the one he fired 2 months ago for misconduct. A man angry enough to retaliate. A man with copies of old data. Kian whispered, find him. Now. But the damage was done. Mara's name was already on fire. Kian didn't think. He just left the building. His driver scrambled behind him, shouting for him to wait, but Kian ignored everything except the need burning through him. He had to fix this. He had to fix her life, the life he had already ruined once. At the residence, Mara stood on the balcony, staring at the streets below, while journalists swarmed outside the gates. Daniel joined her. His voice was soft, but edged with frustration. Do you still think he wouldn't do this? I don't know, she whispered. I want to believe he's not that man anymore. And what if he is? Daniel asked gently. Mara closed her eyes. Her heart was splitting between the woman she was and the wounds she thought she'd buried. She didn't want to hate Kian. She didn't want to fear him. She didn't want to be controlled by him again. Today she would have to choose, fight loudly or walk away with dignity, condemn him or hear him out one last time. But before she could decide, a guard rushed in. Ma'am, there's someone at the gate. He's demanding to speak with you. Mara's chest tightened. She already knew who it was. Kian Lawson? Daniel asked sharply. The guard nodded. Mara inhaled slowly, painfully. This confrontation, this final break, would decide everything. He lets her go. She finally walks free. The evening light stretched long and gold across the Prime Minister's private garden, catching on the roses Liana had helped plant. She stood on the stone path, hands clasped, breathing in slowly. Today had been a storm, public tension, unexpected confrontations, and wounds reopened. But now, at last, the world felt quiet. Behind her, footsteps approached with a hesitance she immediately recognized. Noah. The billionaire who once filled rooms with arrogance now paused several feet away, as if afraid to step any closer. Your security let me in, he said quietly. I asked for 5 minutes, only 5. Liana looked at him, not with anger, not with affection, just clarity. He looked older than when she last saw him, like regret had carved subtle lines along his jaw and eyes. I didn't come to fight, Noah said quietly, or to defend myself. I came because, his voice wavered, because I owe you the one thing I never gave. Liana waited, calm. Noah exhaled deeply, the confession dragging itself out of him. "That day," he said, "when I splashed mud on you, I laughed because I was ashamed. I didn't know how to face the damage I caused you. I thought power gave me immunity. I thought indifference was strength." He swallowed hard. "But seeing you again, seeing who you've become, showed me exactly who I wasn't." Liana's throat tightened, but she stayed silent. "I belittled you," he continued, "dismissed you, broke pieces of you I never even saw. And you still found a way to walk into a better life, a stronger life, a life that doesn't include me and shouldn't." A breeze moved through the roses, brushing past them like a quiet witness. Liana finally spoke. "Noah, I don't hate you," she said softly. Her head snapped up, surprised, almost unbelieving. "I used to," she admitted. "I used to carry the shame you put on me like a second skin. But you don't get to define me anymore, and I don't need revenge. I don't need your guilt. I don't need your validation." She breathed in deeply. "I just need the space to keep healing." He nodded slowly, painfully. "And you have it from now on." Silence stretched, soft but final. She stepped closer, not for intimacy, but for closure. "I forgive you," she said gently. Noah closed his eyes, and for the first time since the day he lost her, he let a full breath escape his chest, trembling, broken, freeing. But forgiveness wasn't a bridge. It was a door, closing with grace. He stepped back. "You won't see me again," he said, not bitterly, but with the acceptance of a man finally releasing what he had clutched too tightly. Liana turned toward the garden gates, the same way she'd walked away from him years ago. But this time, her steps were steady. This time, her heart wasn't dragging chains. This time, there was no mud, no humiliation, no shame, just freedom. When she reached the gate, she looked forward, not back, and whispered to herself, "This is my life now." And she walked into it. If this story touched you, hit subscribe and stay with us for more powerful emotional stories about healing, dignity, and second chances at life.
Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.